Good morning, wildlings. I think this is technically my first live, even though I tried to do one last week and it didn't upload for some reason. But I felt really compelled to come on this morning and share with you a technique that I have. I had someone asking me this morning about forgiveness and forgiving yourself, and their words were specifically, if you've done a lot of things, like a lot of bad things, and you've worked through changing it and you feel as though you've resolved it with the other people involved, and you're trying to change all those behaviors, at what point can you forgive yourself? And my answer to that was at any point. You can literally choose to forgive yourself at any point. You actually don't need another person, like the other people involved. If you've done someone wrong, you don't need them to forgive you in order for you to forgive yourself. You have responsibility over your own experience, and I believe that you can move through that. And one of the reasons why I think this is the most perfect first live, and I'm going to be putting it on my Instagram TV as well, is because it's a technique that I have used for some time, which I absolutely love, and I find it possibly the most impactful of all techniques to do with forgiveness, particularly forgiveness of yourself, and reconciling different situations that feel out of your control and that you're not exactly sure where to go to from here. It's also important to note that just because something presents itself at one point, sorry, I forgot to turn my notifications off, something presents itself at one point for healing and it is healed in that moment. Healing is non-linear, so we usually come to, it's a circular type of a thing. So we usually come back to some of these lessons to see what we've learned and if we've leveled up from there, and there's sometimes another layer. So this is also really good for those points where you're like, I thought I'd moved on past this. Why is this coming up for me again? Why is it that I feel guilty? And so this technique is good for that. And this is the technique called Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian technique of reconciliation. And it's so simple and beautiful. And this is basically how it goes. So any situation that you have, let's say you've done something wrong to someone, and what you do is you sit in that moment, you honor where you were at that time and your feelings at that time, and their feelings. You take in the gravity of the experience and you honor it. You give it a space and you allow yourself to feel it. You don't have to dwell in it. You don't have to feel all the guilt and all the rest of it. You just honor it. You hold space for it, for whatever it feels like in that moment to you. So you hold that space, you have it in your mind, you take a really deep breath into your belly, breathe it down into your belly, hold it, breathe it out, and then you say, there's 4 sentences, and people say them in different orders, but whichever order feels best to you. You say, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, I forgive you. Those 4 things. You can say them in any order. I don't believe that any one particular order is the right way to do it. But honoring and respecting every part of that, your responsibility in it, their responsibility, and then just letting it go to the universe, is one of the most powerful tools for reconciliation and forgiveness that I have ever come across. It is so simple. I like doing it in the shower daily. If I feel as though I've come across something that might be a trigger later, then I do it in the shower. If I feel as though I've really messed up something during the day, I'll do it in the shower, and that way it kind of feels symbolic of just being able to wash that clean and get rid of it as soon as possible instead of it letting it fester. And the whole idea, I think it's interesting, the whole idea of holding on to guilt and saying how long is an appropriate time for you to feel guilty. There's this belief system that there's some kind of virtue in punishment. There's no virtue in punishment. If you have learnt your lesson, then what is the use of guilt? You learn your lesson, you go, okay, that's something I don't want to do again. That didn't feel good. I didn't like the outcome. I didn't like the consequences of all of that. That's really all that guilt is good for, if there's any good for it at all. Because what guilt does is it shames and isolates you. If anything, I think that we need to not feel the punishment and the guilt. We don't need to hold on to it. We don't need the gravity of it. We can ask for what the lesson was, because there's always a lesson. Everything is learning. Everything is learning. Ask what the lesson is. Try and learn it. Look at it from different points of view. Journal about it so that you can learn it at its gravity, like at its core, and then release it. Release your guilt. You are not winning any brownie points for feeling guilty. You're not. It's not helping anyone holding on to that guilt. Learning from it, moving past it, reconciling it, loving yourself, appreciating that it is all just learning is the main thing to do, especially when it comes to making mistakes. That's life. It's going to happen. You are going to mess up, but it's what you do with that lesson that is the main thing. I hope this helps. And yeah, if you're struggling to move past something, let me know and maybe I can do some work with you. But this is something that I feel really strongly about, something that I love and something that I do daily and continue to do for past things that seem to come up at different times. I hope you are enjoying your day and all the best.